Steve Roberts, ABC News political analyst. Good morning, Stephen Roberts.
Hey, McGraw. You know, just the other day I had a student of mine tell me that her dad listens to us on your show. He's a big fan of yours. So nice to hear.
Do they live here in town?
Yeah.
Oh.
This is a wonderful family, and their daughter's a student of mine here at George Washington University. And
Beautiful.
said her dad's a big fan.
He's the one. Good. Well, we finally found the one guy who listens to the show. That's great news, Stephen Roberts.
I know, it's always helpful. Isn't it?
ABC News political analyst. We've got Donald Trump, Bernie Sanders, and Paul Ryan heading back to Washington. First, let's start with Paul Ryan. He hasn't said anything. What does that lead us to believe?
Well, he doesn't want the job. I mean, why would you? I mean, you're dealing with a very fractious caucus. You've got 40 very conservative members who have been effectively controlling the whole body. Now, I did a calculation this morning. That's 40 members is 17% of the Republican caucus. That's all. But they have been very effective at thwarting John Boehner, the Speaker, who's now said he's going to retire, Kevin McCarthy, who was the likely heir, and he's dropped out of the race. Ryan wants to be president, and presiding over this very fractious Republican caucus is not in any way the ideal way to do that. But McGraw, I can't see anybody else. I just don't see anybody else emerging with anything like the stature that Paul Ryan has, and if he decides not to do it, they're in a real mess.
Well, they won't. If they won't compromise within their own caucus and within their own party, right? They can't compromise with their people who agree with them. So how are they going to compromise with anything else?
Well, you know, the problem here is with the word compromise. I've covered politics a long time. I covered the House of Representatives for the New York Times for 8 years. And it left me with a firm belief that compromise is actually one of the most noble words in the political language. It's the essential lubricant for any functioning legislature, particularly one of a country this vast and this diverse. If you come to Washington and say, I have my principles and I can't bend them in any way, well, you've got 434 other people who also have principles. That's a recipe for disaster. It's a recipe for paralysis. But the whole notion of compromise as a noble exercise has been undermined. For many people in Washington today, compromise means treason. It means betrayal. And there's absolutely no way to run a legislative body if a significant number of people take that action.
Stephen Roberts, look into your crystal ball. Is Donald Trump in this for the long haul? Will he have the staying power?
You know, it's a very good question. I keep thinking no. But on the other hand, one of the key metrics that undermines other candidacies, money, is not going to be a problem for him. You know, Scott Walker ran out of money. Chris Christie is about to run out of money. Donald Trump's not going to run out of money. You know, he sell a hotel, right? But the other thing is that others have failed to fill the vacuum. Look, more than 60% of Americans clearly say Donald Trump is not qualified to be president. He doesn't have the temperament. He doesn't have the experience. 60%. But one of the reasons we're still talking about Donald Trump in late October is because particularly Jeb Bush has failed to ignite any real passion, any real enthusiasm, and he has not filled the vacuum. Chris Christie hasn't filled the vacuum. John Kasich hasn't filled the vacuum. Even Marco Rubio, who's doing better than some of the others, has failed to generate a great deal of traction. The result is that Trump is up there in the polls in part because no one has really challenged him as an effective alternative. I still think in the end that voters see Trump as Jeb Bush said over the weekend, a reality TV star playing a presidential candidate. I do not think many of those people who even answer the polls right now would eventually vote for him. But in the absence of a real challenger, he continues to do very well.
We can all agree that this is a strange election, right? I mean, is that...
we sure can.
This might be one for the books.
That's the one thing we can all agree on.
There you go.
All of our predictions have been wrong.
Stephen Roberts, ABC News Political Analyst. Thanks for checking in. Have a good week.
Okay, pal.
7:24 here, Big 550 KTRS. We'll go inside the numbers with 538 next on the Big 550.